Mayor David Freed was first selected to fill an unexpired term in 2000. He was then changed the rules and was the first elected mayor of Robbinsville in 2004 and re-elected in 2009 by a 2-to-1 margin. Has done a lot for the town itself around here and hopes to continue doing that. We at Investors are here to support everyone in the community. Mayor David Freed.
Good afternoon. Everyone hear me okay? I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and I really want to thank Richie and Paige. And I've been trying to figure out all day how I can get this facility somehow in my office, because this is actually pretty cool. So we've got a lot that I want to talk to you about today, and I've kind of made it a tradition. We do this now from memory, so forgive me if we go astray, because every time I've practiced this so far today, they keep telling me, wow, it's completely different than the last time. So I have no idea where we're going to go, but it should be interesting. As we start talking about what's happening in government, one of the things I wanted to focus on today was some of the big things that we really, really need. We always talk about some of the things that have happened, but one of the things I wanted to talk about are what should we be doing? What should we be focused on? What is happening? What are some of the big things? And why aren't they happening? And I think one of the real reasons why government has been so stagnant is political correctness. And I've been speaking out on this and about the fear that sort of focuses around political correctness. I was never so surprised when we talk about that than when we started talking about Christmas this year. And something so simple, I hear some groans, but something so simple as calling a Christmas tree broke out into the debate that it did. And we heard from so many people from so far away, and just being able to say these things. But oftentimes in politics, we're unwilling to say what we should be saying. We're unwilling to say what we're really thinking. We're unwilling to take on the biggest things because we're afraid. We're afraid to make a mistake. We're afraid to think about what someone might say or say the wrong thing or have a slip of the tongue. And that becomes paralyzing oftentimes. And I thought I would do something a little bit fun today. So I want you all to have an opportunity to think about what it's like to be an elected official. It's going to be fun. I want you to close your eyes. Okay, now I want you to think about the dumbest thing you have ever done. You're laughing. Your most embarrassing moment. I want you to think about it. Have it in your head. Now I want you to imagine it on the front page of the local newspaper. And that oftentimes is what happens to us in government, right? We're afraid. And in business, it's okay for us to make a mistake. How many people in business have never had a bad idea? Right? You didn't do anything, right? And then the key when you think about what a level 5 leader is, it's someone who's willing to say, I had a bad idea, and I'm going to change it, right? We don't stick with our bad ideas. That would be a really, really bad idea. But in government, if you have a bad idea, and then you change your mind, you become a flip-flopper, right? How many times have we heard that term? Every time I hear flip-flopper, I'm thinking, well, that's a good thing, right? Because at least he didn't stick with the same bad idea, because then that would be really, really bad. But that's what oftentimes happens in government. So I thought today we would start talking about a couple of the big things that I'm really passionate about and I think we need to focus on if we're really going to change how things are happening in each and every one of our communities. And the first, and I saw Mayor Yady here, and she's been absolutely leading on this effort, and that is energy receipts. When you think about what's happening with energy receipts, and essentially what that was, the utility companies were paying for property that were in our towns that were previously taxed, and the state was kind enough to collect it for us, which was nice, and then they send us one check. Thoughtful, nice, made it easy for us, made it easy for the utility company. Then they did something clever. They changed the name. They called it municipal aid. And then they cut it, which was a nice way of basically them taking our money, keeping it, and balancing their own budget. And then, as an added bonus, they had the idea that they could then wag their fingers at us and say, listen, guys, you guys need to do something about cutting those property taxes. They're too high. So I thought I would give it a nice analogy. Imagine, because I know I saw my friend, one of the freeholders here, Mr. Cimino, you're in the back. So I had an idea. Imagine if we decided, for efficiency's sake, we collect the money for the school boards and for the county. So imagine if we decided we would change the name for the county tax to county aid, and then we cut it. and no one would stand for it, right? And it would be absolutely unacceptable. But that's exactly what's happening at the state. And that's why the mayors across the state are so angry, because they continue to take our money and then expect us to run our towns efficiently, and they want us to lower taxes, which is absolutely positively impossible. And that's why I applaud Mayor Yady for doing what she's doing, because we need to be speaking out, because we need to be able to provide services at the local level. I have a table of police officers to make sure that we keep our towns safe, to make sure that we can continue to provide the services that everybody wants, and to do it in an affordable way. One of the other big things is school aid. I mean, everyone keeps talking about the school funding formula, and it's challenging. When you think about the fact that in the state of New Jersey, we have a school funding formula that no one can explain, including the commissioner. And I know Steve Mayer, our superintendent, was here. He and I actually went down to the state, and they could not even explain the funding formula to us. And we're pretty smart guys. So when the commissioner can't explain the funding formula, you know it's a really bad idea, and it's terrible because kids are becoming a liability. When kids in communities become a liability, that's not a good thing. We're not building. We're not creating jobs. We're not doing construction. What people want is more mixed use. They want to be able to live where they work. They want to be able to walk downstairs and go to the store. But we're not willing to create those high-density type opportunities because it generates so many kids. And without a fair school funding formula, it's never going to work. So it's something that we really have to start thinking about and working on from the local level, speaking out about, because if we don't have a fair funding formula, it makes no sense, and it's going to stagnate each and every one of our communities. So I don't just come with problems. I thought I'd also come with a solution. School funding formula is hard, right? It doesn't have to be. Take 2/3 of the money, divide it up by the number of kids. Then it's fair. Everybody knows exactly what everybody else is going to get. And yes, there are some communities that need extra help. So take the final third of the money and give it to the communities that need extra help, like the Abbott districts. This way, there is no politics, and everyone knows exactly what everyone's going to get. And it's fair, and it's equal, and it would absolutely stimulate so many jobs in New Jersey, which would help all of us. The third thing that I think would really help communities is COA. And for those of you who don't know what COA is, it's the Council on Affordable Housing. Millions of dollars have been spent on consultants trying to figure out a plan for affordable housing that most people are never going to build. And that is an absolute tragedy, because we should be able to build affordable housing, but it needs to go where it should actually go to work and where you can make the best benefit from it. And that place is really to be able to use RCAs, regional credits, and we could put regional credits in cities like Trenton where we could really make a difference. A little town like Robbinsville has millions of dollars of affordable housing money. If I was able to move that money to Trenton, we could literally reshape whole neighborhoods. And we'd give people the opportunity to have a home where they would have equity, where they would have something to protect. And if you think about what's going to happen when people, are they going to go outside and defend homes that they rent? No. But if they owned a home, if they had equity in that home, then there would be a reason for them to go out and to actually take their neighborhoods back. And I think they would. But we have to be able to give them that opportunity. And RCAs would absolutely make that happen. And we could make a real difference in people's lives. Could you imagine being able to give someone a home that they owned, that they would then have equity in, that they would have hope? That would absolutely change things and would absolutely make the state of New Jersey better. The last is consolidation. Everybody keeps talking about consolidation, right? That's the answer. It's going to make taxes lower. It's one of my personal favorites. The two Princetons consolidated. It saved 1 penny. Think about all that work. It saved 1 penny. The towns who are doing the consolidating have no real benefit of consolidation because it's not going to lower their taxes. Those that are consolidated have a significant advantage. They are going to see their taxes lowered. However, why would the town doing the consolidating take on all that work if it isn't ultimately going to benefit their residents? The only way that we can make these things happen is to create some carrots instead of just sticks. And right now, the state just keeps telling us we have to consolidate, we have to consolidate. But people really identify where they live by their town, not by their county, not by anything else, but they say, I live in this town or that town. They choose where they live by those things. So I really believe if we're going to make this happen, we have to work together, and there has to be significant incentives for people to do it, not just threats. So some of my personal favorites. Not only do we have the big smart things, but the things that they are able to accomplish because of fear and because they're easy and because we play small ball are some of what I call the big dumb things, like 0% cap. How can you possibly have a town with a 0% cap? That would mean that we'd never give a raise again, that any new family moving in, would we not collect their trash? Would we not send their kids to school? Would we not have a street light go on? It makes absolutely no sense. It's an easy talking point, but it's bad government. Towns need to be able to provide these resources to their residents. My personal favorite big dumb thing they gave us a couple of years ago, the annual dog census. I actually spend taxpayer, you're laughing, I spend taxpayer money on this. I can actually tell you that I have 1,033 dogs in my town. It's important, right? I mean, I know all of you came here today and you were thinking, you know, I wonder how many dogs Robbinsville has. I can tell you. What's shocking is I spent money on that. And these are the kinds of laws that the legislature is giving us at the local level that we spend money on, your money. And we need to stop doing these little things and start really working on the big things. And that's, you know, one of the reasons why, you know, I think we have to make major changes. And that's some of the things that I'm going to continue to talk about. I've got 4 years left. I'm going to continue to talk about a lot of the big things, and I'm going to continue to make fun of the dumb things, because we have to make changes if we're all going to be able to afford to live in New Jersey. We also have to hold people accountable, which, you know, I'd like to do a lot. So I typically have picked a fight with somebody at some point every year. This year, my personal favorite was the cable company. They decided they would cut programming and increase our rates, which how that was supposed to be a good thing for our residents, I don't know. And being a Jets fan, I wasn't going to let it happen. So we vetoed the cable franchise. And I don't blame a lot of these companies for doing what they're doing, because they are overseen by a Board of Utilities company, right? The BPU. And if you're going to have a business, right, and we all had business, if you could offer a mediocre service, not necessarily be accountable for ever doing a good job, not have to worry about customer service, and be able to increase your rates, I mean, who wouldn't want to own that business, right? It'd be great. I mean, you'd have absolutely no responsibility, no accountability, and you can increase your profits. That's wrong, and everybody knows in business that it's wrong. There should be more to being on the BPU than laying on your back, putting your paws in the air, and having your belly scratched. It's absolutely inappropriate, and at some point we have to start holding people accountable. Why? Because it costs us all money each and every day. And my advice would be, maybe it's time to start putting some mayors on the BPU board, since we're the ones who are going to get yelled at. When the cable changes, we get yelled at. When the lights go off, guess who the first phone call comes? Comes to us. So we need to start holding people accountable. They have to start being able to do a good job. I feel like I've been on a rant, and I apologize for that. But, you know, one of the things that, you know, we have to think about in our town is also focusing on the big things. One of the big things that we're going to work on today, when I go to our council meeting tonight, and I want to thank someone who's actually here. I'd like to thank Kimberly, who went out and gathered 1,000 signatures from our residents. And I'm going to be delivering that to our council members who are here today. Put up your hands. You guys do a great job. I'm only going to pick on you once this entire day. But we've had a challenge in our town. The Foxmoor property that used to house the Marazzo Shopping Center has been vacant for a long time. And I've struggled with this because, you know, I'm a business owner, and I wonder oftentimes, should government get involved in someone's business? Is it really the government's responsibility to interfere if we don't think you're doing a good job? If I did a bad job at my business, you know, should I allow government to come in and tell me they think I'm doing a bad job? It's my business. I can do a bad job if I want, right? So if I've had this back and forth, is it or isn't it the right thing to do for government to get involved in the way someone else is running their business, even if I don't like it? But after taking a look at the 1,000 signatures, I realized it is the right thing to do, because it's actually harming our residents, and it's harming the other businesses that are in that shopping center who are struggling because they have not had an anchor. So today, we have literally over 1,000 signatures from our residents asking the township to get involved. So I think the time is right, and tonight I'm going to be coming to the council meeting, you guys get a little advance on this, asking the council to put the Foxmoor Shopping Center into an area in redevelopment. I think it's time. I think those business owners have waited long enough for help, and we really need to get involved and make that center vibrant. And I think we can do a lot of things to help that along. We can open up that berm, give it access to Route 130 or access to Route 33, and we can do a really good job making that center vibrant again. And I think that will really help our residents. We also will talk about doing the big things. We talk about economic development. And this is something that has allowed our township to really separate ourselves and allowed us to do all the things that we've done to this point. And being aggressive at economic development is something that we made a conscious effort to do 8 years ago. We were terrible at it. And what we knew was we could be really great at warehousing. We had great facilities, we had great location, and we had great infrastructure. What we didn't have was a great process. So 8 years ago, we really started down a path to create a winning process so that we could attract Fortune 500 companies and that we could have a track record that they understood that if they did what they said they were going to do, we would be able to bring them in, we would keep them here on time and on budget. And we have done that again and again, including the facility that we're in today. And that has led really to the culmination of being able to bring what was the most sought-after rateable in New Jersey, which is Amazon.com. And Amazon is building 1.3 million square feet as we speak. They're going to hire 1,400 full-time jobs over the next 3 to 4 months. In the last 18 months, we have built or leased 10 million square feet. 10 million. It's had an economic impact of over $700 million to the area. So when we think about the big things, when you start small and you work your way forward, this has allowed us to do so many things in our township and has really allowed us to talk about the next subject, which everybody has to talk about, the budget, right? No one of these would be complete without talking about the township's budgets. We have done a lot of things very, very differently. We're one of the few towns to eliminate lifetime health benefits. I have business owners here. How many of you offer lifetime health benefits? No? You don't pay for employees forever to health insurance? Can't imagine why. It's not sustainable, correct? And when we look across New Jersey, there's a lot of things that aren't sustainable. What I didn't want to do was take away what we promised people who were already hired, because that wouldn't be fair. But what we did do was we eliminated lifetime health benefits for all the new hires. Why? Because it's unsustainable. You cannot provide a benefit like that that doesn't make any sense. When we talk about pensions across New Jersey, and they're having a big discussion right now with pension, right? I'm going to pick on the judges just because they're fun. The judges contribute 3% of their pay to the pension system, right? And they do that for roughly 20 years before they can retire. Can we agree that 3 times 20 is 60? Yes, we all agree? So, in the first year, they take out 65% of their pay in the first year. What could possibly go wrong with that system, right? Contribute 60 over 20 years, take out 65 in the first year, and we wonder why it's not working. Would anybody in their right mind in their business do that? No. And these are the things that we have to change in New Jersey. They're not going to work. They're not sustainable. So in Robbinsville, we've started making those changes, and they're big changes, and they're hard changes. And I have to tell you, we wouldn't be able to do it without our unions, without our labor, who have been with us the whole time, because they understand that we have to make these changes in order for the township to be sustainable. But it's also why our tax rate has been flat, which it will be again this year, and why we're able to hire people while everyone else is laying off. Why? Because we're going to keep our town sustainable. This year, we're actually going to pay significantly less in our debt payments than in years prior. Why? Because we've been lowering the amount of debt that we have, which is a reverse trend across America. But if we lower the amount of money that we have in debt, we'll lower those debt payments, will allow us to continue to provide services. So as I stand before you today, Robbinsville's township's budget is as strong as it's ever been. Our taxes are stable, and when you think about where we were 8 years ago, before we made these changes that no one thought you could do, we were the fastest growing taxes in Mercer County, by far. Year in, year out, our taxes were going up every single year. Last year, we were able to cut taxes. This year, we've been flat. And I foresee us, as we move forward, being very, very stable, which is exactly what people want. They want to have stable government. But you can't do it without being willing to tackle some of the big things. As I stand before you, we are the only town in New Jersey who ever took over a fire district. It saved our taxpayers $1 million a year. And we're willing to do some of these things that other people just won't. But by doing them and by having our employees work with us has allowed us to continue to be sustainable and allow us to continue to provide great service to our residents, which is what everybody wants. We also this year had to do a revaluation, which is another little rant that I have for New Jersey. Revaluation in New Jersey is a really interesting thing. The suburbs, every 10 years, are ordered to do a revaluation. Now, the way it's supposed to work is everyone in the county is supposed to actually do a revaluation. However, the way it really works is the suburbs do it every 10 years, and everyone else gets off the hook. My friends in Trenton haven't done it since 1992. Ewing hasn't done it since 1993. We did ours about 6 years ago. It cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 to revaluate my entire town. I then subsequently lost every single appeal that we went up against. We were perfect. Our record was perfect. We lost 100%. It cost us $300,000 to then revaluate the entire town again. Think about that, $700,000. And this year, I can stand before you and tell you, our revals are still wrong. So we are doing it again this year. There is a much better process, and there has to be a better way to do revaluation. It has to be fair. And when you think about, capricious and arbitrary, the reval system in Mercer County is just that. Some towns do it, some towns don't. And when we do it, if you do it at the wrong time, you can legitimately hurt people. When you take a look at when Princeton did their revaluation, there were literally people in Princeton who had to leave their homes because they couldn't afford the property that their property value increased. And that raised their taxes. And they couldn't afford it. And the mistake that they made was picking the right neighborhood. And I can't imagine a system that would allow all of us to chase people out of their homes because they picked the right neighborhood. So I think we can do a whole lot better. I think we have to do a whole lot better. And again, I'm not going to offer problems without solutions. So, easy solution. When a person sells their property, we all know exactly what it's worth, right? You can't argue it. Somebody sold it, somebody bought it, definitely went for a value, and you have to register it with the clerk's office, correct? Can't do a transaction without it. So, there's the new value. When you have a new value, you then set the value on the new rate, and everybody can't argue the process. And almost every property sells every 20 years, so over the long haul, everything will get revalued for the right amount at the right time, and it will be fair, and it will always be changing, and it's really how we should do it. And that's one of the things that I'm absolutely going to push for over the next couple of years because we have to make this process better. We can't continue to allow there to be winners and losers every time we have in the revaluation process, and we also can't allow the rate to constantly be fluctuating each and every year. So it's something that we're going to do, that we had to do again this year. Our largest properties had to be reevaluated this year, Foxmore Town Center, et cetera. So we need to stop this fluctuation. We need to have some certainty, and that's hopefully something that we can do in our process as we go forward. The last thing I want to talk a little bit about are what I call our Robbinsville Angels. We recently had a blood drive in our township, and we literally at 6 o'clock in the evening, we were supposed to be open till 8:30. We had so many people there that we actually had to stop taking people. The line was so long, there was a 2-hour wait that we couldn't take any more people in the building. And the head of the blood drive just was sitting there stunned. And we did almost 100 units at that point during the day. And she said, I've never seen anything like this. And one of our residents came walking up and she said, well, that's Robbinsville. And it's true. When you think about our community, every time I have ever asked for help, it's really one of the blessings that I've had of being mayor. Anytime I've ever asked for help, the response has always been overwhelming. And today, you are going to see on your tables a box from one of our angels, David Bradley Chocolate, who's also one of our local businesses, and a group that's always there for us. And on the box, you're going to see a quote. And those are quotes from all the different community civic organizations that have written, and when I asked them why, what I wanted to know, why do you do it? Why are you always there for us? How is it that every time I call, you're always there? And you'll see some of their responses on the boxes because they really were overwhelming, and I was going to read a few of them, and there were so many that I actually wanted to share them. And you'll notice they're all different, so feel free to share them with one another. But one of the groups that I'm going to pick on today is the Baptist Temple. They came into our town a few years ago, and they really have been overwhelming. I mean, every time I need help, they're always there. Recently, we turned our blood drive into a little bit of a contest, and we actually had an award for those who would bring the most people. The Baps won, hands down, And then they immediately turned the reward over to Little League and said, we don't want anything. All we want to do is help. And it exemplifies, who they are. We can count on them. And I think one of the best stories I have is during Hurricane Sandy, there was a group, Suncoast Oil, and they sent about 50 truckers up into the community. And the truckers were all staying at the Tamaro property. And they were fueling these cells. And they had literally took all the fuel in the trucks and drove them from Louisiana to New Jersey. And they were fueling these cells. And these cells were going up to North Jersey to run gas stations and hospitals. And they were these pods that they could fill into these pods, take the fuel up to North Jersey, and then they could bring them back and refill them. And they were literally there morning, noon, and night. The downside is the owner of Suncoast sent everyone immediately because she had gotten so much help from the north when Louisiana was affected. So what they didn't have was hotel rooms. So these poor folks were working literally 15, 16 hours a day and sleeping in their trucks. So we didn't know what we were going to do, and sure enough, we called over to the Baptist Temple. They opened up. They brought in cots. They opened their showers. And then the next thing I know, they were cooking. And we literally had our Baptist Temple cooking for about 50 truckers. And I got to tell you, those are the days when you sit there and you just say, the world does work in mysterious ways, and this is a clear example of how it's supposed to happen. So I know some of them are here today in the back, and I'd like to thank them for their service. They are truly amazing, and they exemplify, when I talk about the Robbinsville Angels, they exemplify exactly who they are. I want to thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it.